The video
Hi, there we
one,
go.
two, yeah. Okay, perfect. All right, so we can go ahead and start and talk about our um, panel today. Hi everyone, welcome to the second CWA monthly forum, and I hope it's been a good year this year so far. Um, my name is Megan Moyer. I'm the president of CWA this year. This panel is planned uh, on with the mission along the mission of CWA. Just to tell you a little bit about our mission, we are aiming on elevating the status of women in our industry, construction and architectural design and interior design. And this year, um, we are mainly focused on one of the main focuses that we are conducting is inclusiveness, and I thought it's actually will fit into our mission uh, well if we expand our inclusiveness to the population who have uprooted and just arrived in the country. Uh, and the focus is on women mission in the industry particularly. But it's a broader conversation, so it can really go in many directions. But we want to find out from the organizations who are actively working on promoting the status of refugees in Chicago area, uh, namely Refugee One and Work Relief Chicago. Uh, Okay, here. Hi. This must be
Hi.
funny. Hi. Welcome. I'm glad you could join. Um, so um, Here with me today, I have four panelists from the two great organizations that I just mentioned. Jamie Corliss is the Youth Mentor Coordinator from Refugee One, along with Johnny Alam. He is the Employment Specialist with Refugee One. Then from Work Relief Chicago, we have Rachel Rasmussen, and World Relief DuPage Aurora, we have Dan Peterson. And I would like to just open it up to you guys to tell us a little more about your organizations, how you've been involved with the process of, the transition for the refugees, and if you want to use any background stories or anything you want to share with us, that'd be great. So why don't we start with Refugee One, Jamie and Johnny, if you want to take it from here, that'd be great.
Sure. So I'm not sure how familiar everyone is with refugee resettlement as a whole, but Refugee One is one of the largest resettlement agencies in Illinois, and we have a whole range of services for refugees starting from the moment that they arrive in Chicago. So we pick up refugees from the airport, help find them housing, their first housing in Chicago, locate employment, mental health and other health services. We have English classes. And then I work with our youth program, which supports youth through a variety of services, such as after school programming, tutoring, in school support with liaising with teachers and supporting students who need IEPs. And then I personally was connected to this panel because I work with our youth mentor program where we support refugee youth ages 15 to 24 who are matched with volunteer mentors. And we do also programming as well. So many refugees in this age range are in high school or graduating from high school or are seeking higher education. And so that's just sort of a brief overview of our program as a whole. Johnny, I don't know if you want to talk about employment more specifically.
Sure. Thank you, everyone, and thank you, Jamie. As Jamie mentioned earlier, we have a bunch of program, and especially we have program for youth and also, like all refugees, including male and female, everyone. And I am as a employment specialist. I work with, like, actually I used to work with a lot of different departments, including case management, housing, and now I just accept a new position. So and then I became a employment specialist, and then I've been working with employment team, and our job is to provide to find a job for every single refugees and asylee who came through refugee one. And also we work with Jeremy to help some youth who are going to school and then willing to work like part-time, and some of them are full-time when their school off. So these are the program we have.
Okay, thank you. Now, Rachel and Dan, do you want to talk about work leadership?
Yeah, so World Relief is a similar organization in that we provide resettlement services for refugees from the moment they arrive. And it's similar in the sense that we have wraparound services just like Refugee One, picking people up from the airport and then helping them establish their lives with apartments, employment, children and youth, school enrollments, and things like that. In my role, I am on the employment team in the DuPage Aurora office. So I work in the outer suburbs. And in my role, I work with young adults as well as adults who are looking to build a career in the US. So for many years, our agency operated at a very high capacity just because of the rate of refugee arrivals, where we were putting people in jobs as quickly as we can because there's a lot of people coming after them. So we were helping people get into jobs where they could pay their bills and survive, but really there wasn't much capacity to work beyond that. And recently, in the last couple of years, we've been able to develop a few different programs that focus on career pathways, helping people move from a job where they're surviving to a place where they can begin to maximize the skills and talents that they've brought with them. A job that can pay for more than just rent, be able to establish some sort of future for them and their children. In our young adult program, we've been able to help people between the ages of 16 and 24 access education, either vocational education, trade schools, and then sometimes assisting with people going to college. One such individual in this program is a young woman who came to the United States in 2016. She had fled the military government in Myanmar with her family in 2011, and she spent 5 years living in Malaysia between Myanmar and the US, kind of in a spot where you're just kind of in limbo. You're waiting for approval to go to the next country to be resettled, but you don't have all your official rights within the country you're waiting in Malaysia. So when she arrived to the US, she was actually too old to go to high school. When she went to Malaysia, she was 16 years old, and by the time she arrived in the US, she was 21. So that whole period of time where she would have been able to access education was just taken from her, just robbed from her. So at the age of 21, she arrived here. She was in a pretty large family, and she was met with the reality of needing to work to help support her family to establish their new life. So right away, wasn't able to access education, and she began working as an industrial sewer in a local company that partners with us. And there's a lot of dignity in that. There's a lot of dignity in supporting yourself, but it wasn't something that she wanted to do long term. So 3 years later, World Relief was able to launch this new program for young adult mentoring. And in the meantime, she developed an interest in advanced manufacturing and design. So she was enrolled in this program, matched with a mentor to help her, guide through the steps of deciding what she would like to do. She completed a 7-week career readiness and exploration course with us. And then she was given a full grant to cover trade school costs. So she went in and she did training in advanced manufacturing. And now she's moved on and is working as a computer numerical control machine operator. And just really loves the new opportunity she has to work in something a little more technical, a little more skilled, something in her interests. Recently, when I was talking with her, she just shared that prior to coming to the US, and even when she got here, she had kind of lost her hope for education. But now she doesn't feel forgotten. She doesn't feel lost anymore because she's able to access some of these extra resources. So that's one of the exciting things that our program has been able to do is reconnect people back to resources and opportunities.
Thank you so much. Yes, it's certainly exciting, excites us. It's wonderful. Now, Rachel, you want to talk about it too?
Yeah, Dan summarized pretty well what we do at World Relief, but I am at the Chicago office. So we have those three offices, Chicago, DuPage, and Aurora. And my role is Youth Services Coordinator at the Chicago office. So we have sort of like what Jamie was saying, we have tutoring, summer program, after school services, school support in our K-12 program, and then we also have the young adult mentoring program, which was launched a year ago and is what we're hoping to partner with you all with.
Perfect. So I think what you shared about that young woman who came from Myanmar and Malaysia and then ended up in the United States, that's exactly the type of story that we were looking for. That's something that you hear and you feel like, you're making a difference. It's great. And, if we are involved in any sort of program, then it makes you think, okay, how are the ways that you can be involved and how can you extend a hand? Now, if you, first of all, maybe it's good for all of us to find out in the population of your members, people who arrive, how often do you find people who are in the field of construction, or how, I guess I want to say, what's the percentage, if you can, if you can give us an estimate, what's the percentage of the population who are coming from a construction-related industry, or do you get that type of information from them to use for future settlements and placement, job placements, or career development? Jamie, you want to start?
Yeah, Johnny would probably have more information from the adult perspective, since I work more with people who are sort of on the career pathway still in high school. It's sort of my impression that people come with more maybe generalized construction skills, especially people who have been spent a long time as a refugee, maybe without the capacity to get a work visa. They might have worked in the field of construction without necessarily having sort of the specific requirements that are necessary here in the States. But I don't know, Johnny, if you're comfortable talking about your own story. Johnny actually was in construction before coming here as well. So maybe he can share a little bit about, about that.
Yes, thank you, Jamie. Sorry. Yes, I am also a refugee. I was born and raised in Burma, and Dan just mentioned that earlier. When I was 19-year-old, I fled to Malaysia, and I was living in Malaysia like more than 15 years. And then after 15 years, I was able to come to the US. And then, when I came here, I came with my two daughters and my wife. And also when I came here, I don't speak any English. I just, know how to mention some name in English, like, dogs, cat, car, something like that. And when I came here in 2011, I was working full-time in a factory, and also I was taking English classes at Truman College. So doing this, continually, more than 2, 3, 4 years, I was able to learn English, and then, I started, speaking English, and then, I was, able to find another job, which is better than factory jobs. And then I believe after 3 or 4 years, I got a job with Waterloo, Chicago as an interpreter for, Burmese Rohingya people. I was working with Waterloo, Chicago more than a year. Then I got a job at Refugee One as an outreach. Then, continually, now today, I became a, um, social worker, providing services to, all people from, Burma and also, people from, other countries. So these are the story, and then, so I'm doing I'm doing the same thing, I'm giving same services to all of, refugees, coming through, our agency, Refugee One, not only from Burma, but also from all around the world.
That's great. Thank you. Rachel, then, what's your impression of people in your numbers, population that are design and construction?
Yeah, with construction, it's pretty similar to what Jamie said. There's a lot of individuals who will come with construction experience in either their home country or a country that they passed through. And so whether this is a construction laborer or sometimes people who have worked with electrical wiring, that's usually pretty common amongst some groups who come. Electrical wiring, I would say 30 to 40% of individuals from a certain country will have some experience in that. When people get here, construction can be pretty hard to get into. A lot of barriers to get in terms of education and certifications usually stand in people's way. But some people, with that being said, some people have begun training both in HVAC and electrical with the intent of working in that side of the construction industry, but that's still a relatively new thing for us.
Okay. Sure.
Regarding construction job, I have some information because, I came from Malaysia, and 99% of refugees, who are coming from Malaysia, they all have construction, experience, because all these people were working, in construction site when they were living in Malaysia. And I myself, I was working in construction site with one of the company for 13 years, more than 13 years. And I have a lot of experience, about the, construction. I know how to welding, I'm a professional welder, and I know how to cut, I know how to welding, and I know how to, build things, and I also have certificate in AutoCAD 2D. And when I came here in the beginning, I was looking for the same job here. I was like waiting for more than 5, 6, 7 months, but I couldn't find, a job because, here in the US, everyone asks for, certificate.
Right.
Yes, for construction. And, especially, you have to have a certificate from certain, school or, college. So we don't have it. And also all these people, who are coming from overseas countries, they don't have any certificate. So that's why, they can't find any, construction job here in the US. It's really, really difficult to find construction job here.
Well, that actually then helps us to start our next question. That if so, let's imagine there is any young individual who's interested in architecture, somebody in high school age or college age, and they want to find a career path. What are the options available to them? There's a lot of colleges and or Work Chicago and Refugee One are providing assistance as far as selection of the colleges, the application process, and that's mainly for individuals who are ready. But let's say, younger ones who aren't maybe that proficient in English either, but how can you channel that interest to then guide them through a path that is in the field of architecture, design, and construction. Um, and maybe it could be something like, I remember when we were talking, you mentioned presentations and career days. So things like that, how are they available to your members, and how can we as the industry assist in that part of the work? Wants to start? Jamie, you want to start?
Sure, yeah. So Refugee One, and it's been really nice. Since we've begun the Youth Mentor Program, we've also just been doing a lot more specific outreach to young adults and high school students. So we're able to offer things like, last week we did a panel on career pathways in the business field. So we talked about different types of jobs that are available. So this sort of general education around what types of jobs are available, what types of education are available, is something we do quite a bit of. And the mentor program is also, we really try to make sure that youth who have specific career interests can work with a mentor who's in that career field. And so I would say, in sort of from my perspective, having access to or knowledge of those resources is not necessarily the barrier so much as some of the other things that come up, which is that a lot of youth have to financially provide for their family for a long time, or for someone who maybe had a certificate in their home country, but they have to start here by going through 8 levels of English at Truman College, followed by their GED, followed by their high school or their college. That's such a burden, especially when there's someone is financially responsible to their family. But just a positive anecdote, we do have a young woman in our mentor program. She came here when I believe she was 17. She's from Afghanistan. She finished her last 2 years of high school here, and she applied and was accepted to Northeastern Illinois University, and she spent, I believe, 2.5 years getting her general education credits at Northeastern. She just this year transferred to Columbia College, where she's studying interior architecture, which has been her dream. So it is possible. It's just there's so many factors that make it really challenging beyond just the knowledge of what resources are available.
And Rachel and Dan, you want to speak to that?
And also, Refugee One is providing, like sewing classes to a lot of women. And I believe we have more than 100 refugee women, who finish, their sewing classes, and then, they have their certificate, and some of them, already started working like, different places here in Chicago as a, professional, sewing. So this is another new program, Refugee One is providing to refugee women.
Oh, that's great. So, let's say if then maybe we can also talk about all those barriers. I think you brought a good point, Jenny, that, okay, there is a path and we know it, but then there is also, getting accepted to a college, a community college, and something that they can afford. Then what type of resources? There's some resources that are available to everybody, scholarships. Are there resources in Refugee One and what in Chicago to help your members to find out how to apply for those scholarships, or are they eligible? Or what are the criteria to even start some application that they get them into a program? So you want to talk about that? That'd be great. Rachel, you want to start?
Yeah, so I think that you mentioned quite a number of the barriers already. I think another one is English, having the English language ability to do college classes, for example. Also a lot of, even if we see people who have experience, There's a lot of technical language that's required. So that's definitely a barrier. I think that, as Jamie and others already mentioned, having the, and I think Johnny talked about this as well, having the credentials, even having the transcripts from even if you attended high school in your home country or the country that you were most recently in, having the transcripts to that colleges and high schools will accept to show that you were already in this education. I think, yeah, I think those are some of the large barriers. Also, just knowledge of what options are out there, and that's something that we're that's a barrier that we're trying to meet with our young adult mentoring program and our employment team as well, is having the mentors, for example, explore with the young adults which options are available. They try to find out the skills of the young adults and see what careers they could go into with that, look at their past experience and their interests. So I think that is one thing that could be beneficial in meeting that barrier at least. Yeah. Dan, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
No, that was it. That was good. I think all of those are the same, even out in DuPage and Aurora. Yeah.
So, when just moving out to older age groups. So for people who have already built a career, let's say, they're architects, designers, and then, you have to leave all of that for unfortunate circumstances and, leave all of that and move. What are the options that they can go back and pick back up and, find, and I'm sure there's a lot of barrier in that regards, visas and work authorizations and, all of that. What are those barriers and how are those people helped in overcoming those?
Let's say we see a lot of similar barriers with overcoming English. That's like a primary barrier that people work with. I think it's probably true of Refugee One, but World Relief, we do offer a lot of English classes for people to attend, as well as referring to community colleges that run classes like that. When someone arrives and they want to re-enter into a field that they've been in before, it really takes some time sitting down and discussing the multiple steps it'll take to get there. And some of those are more complicated than others. But we do like to be able to connect people to some of those resources like education. A new class that we've started with World Relief is called a career preparation class. And this class is for adults who are looking to explore available careers, as well as maybe re-enter the career they've been in before. It's an 11-week class that we run, and it's currently virtual, where people can really work on professional English skills, work on job searching skills. We bring in a number of guest speakers from different industries to talk about, hey, this is what it's like to enter this field. This is what you have to do to get your foot in the door, those kind of things. So we really like engaging with different representatives from different industries that can give a little bit more insight than we can give in terms of advising people when they're taking steps into a career.
And, like Johnny was mentioning, all the certificates that they need, that probably has some process to it. So, probably partnering and teaming up with other organizations that can help in that, right? That's part of it.
Yeah, with certificates, we have some connections with foreign credential evaluators. So there's a couple that we're connected to, like ECE and WES. These are two private organizations that review and evaluate credentials to see if they match American standards, see if they can be stated as equivalent. So people who do have something that they've been able to bring with them and would like to get it evaluated, we've got some connections for that. It's not a super expensive service. It can be more expensive for some people depending on their income, but roughly between $100 and $250, depending on the industry you're coming from, is the cost to get your degree or your diploma evaluated. And then we work with local, if people aren't going to do that with that, we work with some local trade and vocational schools that provide industry credentials for construction, whether it's an EPA, HVAC license, or National Electrical Code. We have an individual in a plumbing class with ABC contractors. So there's a variety of also local connections for entry level certificates that we help connect people to.
That's great. How is government helping? Are there incentives? Let's say there's a company, there's an individual, a refugee, or an immigrant that gets the certification and everything lined up, and now they want to hire in a place. Are there any incentives for the employers to consider, or what are or any? I'm not sure any government help or incentive in that regards. How do you use that? If there's any?
So a primary incentive that people take advantage of, companies can take advantage of, is hiring people from a low income area. So there's a tax incentive if you've hired someone who is currently receiving public benefits. A lot of members of our communities will be receiving public benefits when they first arrive and when they enter into their first job. So there's certainly tax incentives on a company side for hiring people from a low wage community. Another government program that we work with is called WIOA, Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. And this has a lot of different levers that it can pull to help a company when it comes to on-the-job training. So, we might help connect someone to a trade school for one of these industries. They'll get their certificate, but there's a lot of training they still need to be a productive member of their team at work. So through this system, we'll connect to a local job center, American Job Center, and the company can dialogue with that organization about any sort of additional financial support to help train the new employee for the first couple of months while they're there.
That's great. Now, going back to our main intention to have this meeting, we are as a community of, we're women designers. How do you see us collaborate on issues like that? I know we previously talked about workshops and career days, presentations, job shadow days, or what are your ideas that we can maybe connect and help assist your members?
I think maybe 3 ideas I can think of off the top of my head would be, like you mentioned, job shadowing. If we have a young adult who's interested in one of your fields, we could maybe set them up to shadow your job, or even something like an informational interview. But that would sort of be more as that came up. Another would be mentoring. So if any of you would be interested in mentoring in our program, it could be, we could try to set you up with somebody who would be interested in the architecture field. And ideally that's what would happen, but we don't always have perfect matches for our mentors and mentees. And even any experience that you have in interviewing, getting a job, figuring out education in the US, anything like that, you would still be a really valuable resource for our young adults. And we would, of course, try to match you as well as we could. And then the third would be, something like a workshop or even just like a presentation on what your field is like, how you get into it, the education necessary, that sort of thing, that we could invite our mentees and their mentors to attend, to just learn more about it and hear about it as an option. We also have some partnerships with schools, and so it's possible that we could also invite high schoolers from those to attend something like that. Those are the three that I can think of at the moment.
That's great. How about Johnny? You want to give something to say?
Yes, we've been working with Heartland Alliance because, they are providing some vocational training, like, housekeeping training or, interpretation, something like that. And we sent a lot of our clients to them, and, some of them were able to find a job as soon as they finished the training. So this is something very helpful for our client, even for adults and, young adults, and, also some single moms. So especially housekeeping training. So for now it's a little complicating because, because of COVID-19, almost all of the, hotels are closed. So otherwise, before this pandemic, we were able to find a lot of hotel job, for, a lot of our clients. So these trainings are, really helpful. So this is, so I just wanted to, advise, we should work like, together, to have all those kind of training or, something like that.
Yeah, and I can imagine it be expanded to, other fields that are industry related, so we're architects, but we can, we, our industry is, we're in construction industry, so we're working with, all kinds of designers, lighting designers, and interior designers. So I'm just thinking, or maybe like Rachel, you mentioned just basic job application training and mock interviews and things like that for older ones. And I'm thinking for younger ones, probably something that helps just somebody to recognize their interest in the field. And, maybe drawing classes or workshops or something like that. Have you been in contact with any other organization throughout Chicago, like Chicago Architecture Center or any of those other organizations that I don't know, try connecting members with them?
I haven't been in contact with any of those other organizations. I was just going to say another thing we're always eager to develop is partnerships within the construction industry. So, any sort of, so I don't know how widely CWA works in terms of the industry, but any sort of connections to companies that would help us get the foot in the door for construction laborers or people who are looking at that as a pathway into their future. That would always be beneficial for us. Because I think one of the largest things, at least from an employment side, is breaking through the barrier of the construction industry. It's very hard to get any contact on the inside that we're able to innovate with and think about solutions for their workforce problems and solutions for our workers who could be really valuable there.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I second a lot of what Rachel mentioned in her ideas. Be happy to host some sort of career pathways training. I do think that like a lot of times we think about architecture as a singular job. So understanding like what are all the range of things and levels of education that you can get a job related to that. But also something creative. You mentioned like a drawing class, or when we spoke on the phone, you also talked about some kind of like collaborative design a city building. Be happy to do something like that with some of the youth we work with, just as an activity to expose them to team building or these types of ways of thinking.
Yeah, that's okay. Any comments? We are that anything else that you want to share about your experiences with the refugee community And also, I want to open it up to our audience. If anybody has any questions, you can write it in the chat for me. Johnny, I can read that. You can hear me. Is it better? Do you think it's a connection issue or I'm just being quiet?
I don't know. It's really difficult to hear me. You know, I don't know for other people.
Oh, okay. Can anyone else hear me okay, or are we talking too quietly? All right. All right. Any other comments that you want to share with us? Let's start with Jamie. You want to any closing comments? Anything you want to share with us, or ideas? And then
I guess like one of the things that's important to remember is that like refugees are as different as anyone in any country. And so like, even if right now we can't think of the perfect way for us to partner with CWA, like there's someone's going to come through who's interested in architecture. And so, yeah, so we're glad to make the connection either way.
I think you're right. And thinking about that, I was maybe when I was planning it, I was thinking about the younger ones who, like high school age, and they, might want to find out, okay, how is it, what are the career options here? You can, it's computers or construction or design, and then, how do we expose them to different options that there are? And I'm sure it's something that you do, but then I was thinking how we can fill in one of those, positions to let them know and let you guys know more about our professions, and if we can possibly, provide any of those programming that Rachel also mentioned, workshops, or if there is any job shadow opportunity that somebody wants to participate. So that was the main idea. All right, so I am through with my questions. If anyone else has any questions or comments, or otherwise, I think.
I actually have a comment. It's not really a question. I recently had held a panel discussion where we kind of touched on a lot of the similar topics. We weren't talking about refugees specifically, but one of the topics I think that is pretty like of the moment, and like we've been talking a lot about in architecture, is getting a more diverse demographics in architecture, and ways in which we can kind of promote the profession and industry to a broader group of people, and hopefully to broaden the group of people that eventually enters into the profession. So it was really interesting to hear you guys talk about some of the ideas that you could potentially partner with CWA specifically on. And I think it would be really interesting to explore those ideas, but then also see how like maybe that can be brought into partnership with other firms and people in the industry. I know there's programs like ACE Mentorship in Chicago, which works a lot with high school students. And it could be interesting to have a similar program set up that works maybe more specifically with refugees, because it is across the AEC community. So it is construction engineering as well as architecture. But it was just, it was interesting because I think that the conversation kind of paralleled a lot of things that we talked about with just trying to bring in people of color and women into the industry, and some of those barriers. Maybe the English barrier, not as much, but like a lot of the costs and the licensure barriers exist for all people who are already citizens as well, right? Like people who aren't just refugees. So it was really interesting.
I'm even thinking next to all the barriers, there might be a cultural barrier too. And you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think not in many places, the idea of a woman in construction and architecture field is not very common. So, so if a young person has it in them, in her, and is interested, but there might still be some reservation Is it okay? How does my family think? So I think those are the type of thing. The more there is conversation around it, and I'm not sure. I'm just guessing. You guys probably know better, knowing your members better and interacting with them. But I'm thinking there is also a level of just bringing the acceptance of living in the industry higher, and or maybe introduce it better. That this is something that you could do. That you can be part of. It doesn't always have to be more of a it might be in some areas women might be more focused on domestic tasks all the time, but it can you can think about other options. Um, so I was just thinking that could also be something that could be talked about more and introduced.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I also think that it's just, um, that's just something that makes mentoring so important is just like coming alongside, in this case, yeah, young women and showing them what opportunities are available and like investing time in them. And so I think that like definitely echoing what you were saying, it's definitely, yeah, it's definitely important and it's definitely work that needs to keep being done.
Okay. So this conversation has been recorded, and I would like to just go over it a couple times and write it up. Some like a meeting minute or something. I would like to really something comes out of it, some sort of planning, programming items that we can have a closer participation and collaboration. And I will do that very soon, and I'll be sure to circulate it so we can start a more constructive effort to to just include all women and all girls in our industry. So, well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it that you took the time and participated. Also, Elizabeth Scheider, I forgot to introduce her. She's the vice president of CWA. So I'm so glad that she's here with me. Um, um, Everyone else who listened, thank you so much and have a great night. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Bye.
Bye.